Are you ready to use your coding skills to build something simple, useful and fun that you can publish to the Chrome Web Store for anyone to use? Well, this tutorial will show you how to build your very own Chrome extension. We're going to be using Vite, TypeScript and React, and this is what we're going to be building. This is a Chrome extension that you can click on in the top corner of your browser and it will open up this little pop-up. This has a color picker in it, and you can select a color and click this button and our extension will change the background color of the web page that you're on. Fairly simple, but you'll learn a lot about Chrome extensions by building this. Now this video is going to be a step-by-step tutorial for building this Chrome extension. And like all the tutorials on my channel, we're going to take an iterative approach to building this. So we're going to start small, we're going to build the simplest Chrome extension possible, we're going to load it up in our browser, test it out, and then go back to the code and add a bit more functionality. Then we can load that, test it out, and so on around this loop. Each time the Chrome extension we build will get a little bit more complicated and you'll learn a new concept each time we go around. And this iterative approach is good for learning because there'll be lots of points in this tutorial where you have a working extension that you can play around with in your own browser. You can use the chapters along the play bar of this video if you want to skip ahead to the next section, and the chapters are going to look like this. First, we're just going to build a very basic Chrome extension that doesn't do anything, and then we're going to add an icon and some other metadata. Next, we're going to put a script in there that runs some JavaScript when the Chrome extension is clicked on. And then we're going to add a basic pop-up, so a little bit of UI. And then lastly, we're going to dive in and use Vite and TypeScript to really build out the UI and the functionality of our Chrome extension. Before we get started writing code, let me teach you a little bit about how Chrome extensions work. Chrome extensions are built using JavaScript, HTML and CSS, so it's all the same stuff that you use to build websites and front-end web applications. When you click on an extension in the toolbar of Chrome, you often get a little pop-up that appears. Well, that pop-up is your HTML file. And just like the HTML web page, the markup for that file can pull in CSS styles to control how it looks, and it can run JavaScript in the context of that pop-up. And what do we mean by context? Well, this is the second thing that you need to know about Chrome extensions. Chrome extensions run JavaScript, and there's 3 different contexts your JavaScript can be run in. And the context controls what functionality is available to that script and also what permissions you need to be allowed to run that script in the first place. So the first context is the pop-up. So if you have an HTML file for your Chrome extension pop-up, then that has a script tag on it and that loads in some JavaScript, then that JavaScript will be executed in the context of that pop-up. If you try to access the DOM in that JavaScript, then the document object you get back will be the DOM of the UI for that pop-up. So not the web page that the user is on, but the web page that's in the little pop-up view. So if I have some JavaScript that changes the background color of a page, and if I run that in my pop-up, then it will change the background color of the pop-up. So that's the first context. The second context is the service worker. A service worker is a JavaScript file that sits outside the context of the page that you're visiting, and it lets you respond to events and intercept network requests and that sort of thing. You can think of a service worker a bit like a background process to your web application. It sits in its own context in the background, running code that's attached from the UI. Service workers are not exclusively a Chrome extension thing. All web pages can have service workers, and in Chrome extensions, the service worker makes up the second separated context or execution environment of your JavaScript. Lastly, the third context is the page that the user's looking at. So using a Chrome extension, it is possible to execute JavaScript in the context of whatever web page you've got open at the time. And in a Chrome extension land, these are called content scripts. So when a content script accesses the DOM, it's reading the actual page that the user's browsing at the time. So if you change the background color of a body node in a content script, that will actually change the background color of the web page in the browser and not the pop-up UI like it was before. When you define your Chrome extension, you can specify which websites you want to run content scripts on. And the user that installs your Chrome extension, they can see those sites and they can grant your extension permission to run those content scripts. Right, that's how Chrome extensions execute JavaScript. Let's just look quickly at how you can load up a Chrome extension that you've built for testing purposes yourself. So if you click on the jigsaw piece in Chrome like this and go to Manage Extensions, that will take you to this Chrome/extensions page here. And this is where you can manage all of your Chrome extensions in one place. This extensions page also gives us the option to load a Chrome extension that we've developed locally on our machine. So if you use this button here called Load Unpacked, This button lets you select a folder from your machine that contains the code for a Chrome extension and then load it up in your browser for testing. Now you'll be doing this at multiple points in this tutorial, so I want you to be familiar with that first off before we go any further. Okay, now let's start building the Chrome extension. So dive into Visual Studio Code and open up a new empty folder in the Explorer window and let's get started. Okay, so the first step is to just create a manifest file, and we're going to use that to create a very, very basic bare bones Chrome extension in Google Chrome, just to see what the manifest file does. So if I go in here and create a new file called manifest.json, and then if you go onto the internet, this is called the manifest file format page. I'll put a link in the description. And this tells you the schema of that manifest file in Google. So you can see that the manifest file has got a bunch of stuff you can put in it, but there's actually only 3 properties that are required. So if we add these 3 properties into our manifest file, then we've got everything we need to create the basic, most simple Chrome extension possible. So go back into Visual Studio and we're going to put into this manifest file, we're going to put the version 3, the name of it, I call it my extension, and the version of the extension. So this is 1.0.0. Now that's actually all that we need. If we go back into Chrome and go into our extensions page and do load unpacked, and I'm just going to select that folder that my manifest file is in, and then you can see it's actually created the extension. So this my extension here, this is from my manifest file, that version number is again from my manifest file. And if I open up the jigsaw pieces here, you can see that my extension is in the list of extensions that are installed. So it's actually created a Chrome extension for us there, just using these 3 lines of code in the manifest file. So that's the first iteration. There you go, you can have your very own Chrome extension just with 3 lines of code. Not very exciting, doesn't really do anything. So let's iterate on this again and put some more stuff into it. If I look in this manifest file format schema, you can see we've got this icons property. So this icons property, if I click on that, this is going to tell us how to add an icon into our Chrome extension manifest file. So we add an icons node and then we put in keys into that JSON object. Each one says where you can find the icon for that size. We don't need all of these, they're all optional. So if I just go into here and I'll create the icon PNG here. So I've got icon32.png, that's just a little train to code icon. And if I go into the manifest file and add in an icons node, and I'll just say the 32 pixel version is called icon32.png. So save that, go back into the Chrome extensions tab in Google. And if I click this little refresh button here, that's going to reload the Chrome extension from the manifest file. So if I do that and open up my extensions, you can see that my extension now has this icon onto it. So now I've got a Chrome extension with a name, a version number, and an icon that came from the local folder that the manifest file was in. Great. Now let's add some actual functionality to this. So do you remember we talked about the 3 types of context that Chrome extensions can have? They can have scripts that run inside the pop-up, they can have content scripts that run on the page, and they can have background scripts that just run in their own separate context and respond to events. So I think the simplest scripts to put in here will be a background script. So if I go into my manifest file and add a new node in here called background, and I'll say I've got a service worker and it's going to be called serviceworker.js, and that's going to be a type module. So if I go and actually create that serviceworker.js, so I'll create a new file and it's going to be called service-worker.js. And in there we can use the Chrome API. Now this is the first time we've been using the Chrome API, and it's essentially a set of functions that you can call from inside one of the Chrome contexts. And the way we do that is we call Chrome and then .action and then .onClicked, and then we're going to add an event listener to this. So that means that when we click our Chrome extension in the little jigsaw tab, that's going to fire this event listener here, and it's going to pass in an instance of the tab that they currently had open. So in here, we're going to do some more Chrome stuff. We're going to call chrome.scripting, and we're going to execute a script. So again, this chrome.scripting, we can say what tab we want to execute it on. So we'll pass in the ID of the tab that we had. And there's a number of ways you can execute a script. You can pass in a file to a JavaScript file, but what we're going to do is put it inline. So we'll put in the func property into here, and we're just going to say, show an alert that says, hello from my extension. Cool. So now we've got an event listener that listens to the onClicked event, so when you click the extension, and inside that it's going to do some Chrome scripting, and it's going to execute a script in the context of this tab that says hello from my extension. So if we go back to the manifest file, there's a couple of things we need to do. The first thing we need to do is enable this actions API here. If we did this now, it would say that we don't know what Chrome action is. So you need to go into the manifest file and add a new file in here, a new node in here called action. And we can leave it empty for now, but that basically allows us to use that chrome.action API. The other thing we need is we're going to need a permission to run the script. If you look in this service worker, this is using the chrome.scripting API, which is some functionality that Chrome extensions give you that can execute scripts. And that needs special permissions. So we're going to need to go back into the manifest file and add in a permissions node. So this will be an array, and we're going to put an array, and we're going to put in an item of scripting. So that's saying our Chrome extension needs the permission to be able to execute scripts. We also need a node called host permissions. Host permissions is going to say these are the hosts, or these are the URLs that our script can run on. So if we just put HTTP and HTTP like this, then we can say that our script can run on any URL when it's open in Chrome. So that should be enough to now run our background service worker. So if we go back into the extensions tab, and I'm just going to click this reload icon here. There's a problem with that. I think I've missed out a comma. 1 second. I missed a comma. I have missed a comma up here. There we go. Cool, so I'm going to click this reload button. Did you see it gave us an error though? So it's actually quite useful to have the error. I sort of skipped over that. But anyway, so we'll click reload. That's reloaded it, and you can see now we've got this service worker in here. You can actually click on this service worker and you can get dev tools for the service worker itself. So if the service worker crashes, or if you do any console logging, you can see it by clicking the service worker in the extensions tab. So that's quite nice. And then what we can do is let's just go to a web page. So we'll go to example.com, which isn't a real web page, but it at least loads up in Chrome. And in example.com, we can open our extensions tab and actually click on my extension. And what that will do is it will fire that onClicked event handler, and it will show an alert, hello from my extension. So this alert has happened because we clicked the extension and it's done that execute script using the Chrome scripting API, and it's shown that alert on this page here, example.com. So that's the second iteration of our Chrome extension. We've got an icon, we've got some metadata in there, and we've got a script that executes when you click on it. We can do this again if you want, just to show you. There you go, hello from my extension. Cool. Right, the next iteration of this is we're going to actually add a pop-up. At the minute, when we click on our Chrome extension, it just runs some scripts. But wouldn't it be nice if we actually showed like a little pop-up window to the user there? So the way we can do that is, let's first actually just take out everything from our service worker, because we're not going to need that again. And then we're going to create a new file called index.html. And this HTML file is going to be the HTML that's shown inside the Chrome pop-up window. And the way you can just boilerplate an HTML file in Visual Studio Code is type exclamation mark and then enter, and that will give us the basics of an HTML file. So we can go ahead and give it a better name. So we change this document to be extension title, and then we're just going to put like a tag in here that just says hello. Cool. So we've got an HTML file that's going to show as a pop-up. Then what we need to do is go into the manifest file and tell the manifest about that. So in this actions object, we'll say default pop-up is index.html. So this actions object was blank before, but now we've added in this default pop-up node that points to our index.html. And all these files, by the way, are just in the root of our project here. So we've got the icon, the HTML file, and the service worker, and the manifest. So that should be enough to then show our HTML file as a pop-up. So we go back into extensions, and we click the reload on here, reloaded, and then we'll go back to example.com. And now when I click this, it will show us a pop-up. There we go, it just says hello. So that pop-up is coming from the HTML file that we've called index.html. So that's quite nice. Each time you click on it, it will open it up. There we go. Cool, so this index.html file at the minute, it just has a header tag in it, but I want to show you that you can actually put scripts and things inside that. So what we're going to do is, let's open up the index file, and in here I'm just going to add a button. Call it my button, and I'll say click me. And then we're going to add a scripts tag. You can't actually put inline scripts inside HTML pop-ups, but you can load in script files, and they'll run in the context of the pop-up. So if I do a scripts tag in here and just say index.js, and I need to create that index.js script file, so I'll just create a new file called index.js, and in here we're going to put a function. So let's just create a function that says function say hello. And what that will do is it will need to find, we're going to have to call another Chrome API here. We're going to have to call chrome.tabs. So if I do a new tab and then do await chrome.tabs.query and pass in active.true. So what that's going to do is it's going to query the active tabs in your Chrome browser window, and it's going to pull out the tab that's currently active. So when we're browsing on example.com, that'll be the tab that's got example.com in it. Then we can call the scripting API again. So we call chrome.scripting.execute script. And the target for this script will be that tab. So we're going to pass in the tab ID of the target tab that we got from the active tabs. And then just like before, we'll just put a function in here that does hello from my extension. Finish all this up. And then when this script file is loaded up, we're going to do some DOM stuff in here. We're just going to say document.getElementById my button, add event listener, click say hello. So if you remember from before, when we do document inside a index.html pop-up, that document is going to be the document of this here. So it's going to give us this DOM. So what we're saying inside index.js is load up this DOM and find the button with ID my button and add a click event handler onto it that handles the click me event. And when it does that, it's going to execute this function called say hello. So let's load this back up in Chrome. Go to the extensions tab and just click reload. Now when we go to example domain and open up our Chrome extension, you can see I've got this button on here. So that's the button inside the Chrome extension. We're going to click on that and it's going to execute that JavaScript, which is going to say hello for my extension. But this time the script has come from the index.html pop-up. So that's quite a good Chrome extension so far. This is a Chrome extension that's got a pop-up, it's got some metadata, and it's got a little button that just runs some script on the active tab. If I had a different tab active, so if I went to a different web page, then it would run this script in the context of that web page. And where we've just got alert here, we can actually access the DOM. So if we wanted to do DOM inside here, we did document.body, then inside this function, this document node would point to the document node of the page that you're on. So document.body here wouldn't be the same as this document. It would be the body of, let's say we were on example.com, it would be the body of this page. So that's kind of cool. That lets you like inject stuff into the actual page that the user's browsing. And that's that third context that we spoke about earlier. Cool. Okay, so here we have a very simple Chrome extension. It's got a pop-up that shows this index.html page, and it also has a JavaScript file that's loaded by the index.html page pop-up when the pop-up's opened. The JavaScript is executing some code in the context of the active tab. We also have the manifest file that defines the properties of the Chrome extension. So this is great, and it works. But as you build out your Chrome extension, you might find that you end up with many of these scripts and these files, and perhaps different HTML templates as well. And eventually, this kind of code can get a bit messy and it can become a bit unmanageable, especially during development. So next, I'm going to show you how to recreate this same Chrome extension, but using Vite and Typescript and React. Vite is a front-end build tool that makes it super easy to develop and test web applications locally. And TypeScript is just generally all-round good for rapid JavaScript development because it gives you static type checking and it's just generally much nicer and more user-friendly than working in JavaScript. So to create this Chrome extension in Vite, we just go into the terminal in a new directory and create a new Vite application with npm create Vite at latest. And then we could do npm run dev here and then so if I open up this localhost file here, this localhost URL, then you can see this is our Vite application, and this is just a standard Vite application that comes when we do npm run create Vite at latest. So we cancel that, and then we're also going to do an npm run build. So when you are ready to put your Vite application into production, you run npm run build, and the build script will bundle everything up and it will create you an output folder. So this output folder is called dist, and when we create our Chrome extension, it's this dist folder here that we're going to be putting into Google Chrome as that extensions folder. So when we do load unpacked, it's going to be this dist folder that we load unpacked. So let's go into Visual Studio Code. Right, so in here we have the code for a new Vite application that was created for us. And if you see here, that's the dist folder. So this dist folder is the one that we're going to add into Google Chrome, and this is going to be our Chrome extension. So at the minute, the dist folder has just got an index.html file and it's got an image in it. We can recreate this dist folder at any time by going back into the terminal and just doing npm run build. So as we add in stuff into this Vite application, we'll be doing npm run build, we'll be creating that dist folder, and then we'll be loading that into Google Chrome. So there's a bunch of stuff in here that isn't particularly useful for us right now, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a manifest JSON. So if you remember, you need a manifest JSON for every Chrome extension. That's the one file that you absolutely need. So if we go into this public folder here, in Vite, anything inside this special public folder will just be copied straight to the dist folder. So this vite.svg that it came with, that's being copied into this vite.svg into the dist folder here. So in this public folder, this is where we're going to be adding our manifest JSON file. So we go into there and we'll create a new JSON file called manifest.json, and we'll say manifest version 3 again. And the version of our Chrome extension is going to be 1.0.0, and the name will be my Vite extension. So if I go in here and do npm run build, then building this is going to copy that manifest JSON file just as it is into the dist folder. So now we've got a manifest JSON in the dist folder, and that's now enough to load up this Vite application as a Chrome extension using this manifest file. So if we go back into the extensions tab, we'll remove our previous extension, and we do load unpacked, and we're going to navigate to that dist folder, and I'm going to select the dist folder as my Chrome extension, and you can see now it's extension loaded and it's called my Vite extension. We can open up the jigsaw and we should see that the Vite extension is in here as my Vite extension. So we've actually got an extension now using Vite. Doesn't do anything, but again we'll get onto that in the next iteration. So if we go into this manifest file and we give it a pop-up, we're going to say action default pop-up is going to be index.html. Now that index.html is going to point to the HTML file that Vite creates for us and puts in our dist folder. So that's all very good. We're also going to need the scripting permissions like before. And we're going to need the permissions to do the host. So this means that it can run content scripts on any URL. When you do this in real, like for production, you probably want to put real URLs in here because the extension that we're building today can work on any URL, but you probably will be wanting to build extensions that only work on certain pages, and your users might be a little bit alarmed if they install a Chrome extension that can change any web page they visit. But I'm just doing this for demo purposes because it's easier. Let's put our icon back in here as well. So icon 32 is going to be in there. So if I put icon 32 into this public folder, then when we do an npm run build, it will copy the icon and the manifest into the dist folder. So we can try it now actually. Let's do npm run build. And as that finishes, you'll see the icon appear in this dist folder. There we go. Then we can go back into the Chrome extensions tab, reload it. Okay, I've got an error because there is a comma missing. There we go. Reload that. Still not right because, yes, okay. So this is one thing to know. Whereas previously I was just changing the manifest and then reloading it in Chrome, now because it's in this public folder, I need to change the manifest, save it, and then run npm run build to copy the saved version of that manifest to the output. So if I do that, the manifest in the output should now have that comma I just added back in. We can go into extensions tab and we can reload this. And the Vite extension should now have that icon on it. My Vite extension with the train to code icon. We can open this up and you can see it opens the pop-up that's got the Vite app inside it. So this is running exactly the same way that it was running in this tab here. This was running locally on localhost, and this one is running inside a Chrome extension. There we go. So it's the same Vite application, but we've bundled it inside that pop-up window. We've basically told the Chrome extension to use the output of the Vite bundle as its pop-up window. So that's kind of cool. So let's make this actually do something then. So if we go into source app.tsx, this is the main application, and we'll change the title here to just be my extension. Save that. And what we can do is we can replace what happens when you click this button. The default Vite application just sort of increments a counter. That's not very exciting. So if I go in here and I change this set count to be an onClick function, and then I need to go and create the onClick function, I'll just say click me, and create the onClick function up here inside our app component. And the onClick function is going to do a similar thing as we were doing before, where it alerts something on the page. So inside that onClick, we're going to call the Chrome API. So we're going to let the tab equals chrome.tabs.active true. Now, TypeScript doesn't actually recognize this because the Chrome API is a kind of extra package. Now, you can access it, but TypeScript just doesn't know about it. So in order to make TypeScript know about this, we need to go back into the console and we need to install a package called types/Chrome. So that's going to tell TypeScript about the Chrome API. So if we do that, then next time we build this Vite application, we should have removed the warning about types Chrome. So if we wait a little second, there we go. So that disappears. So that now knows about this Chrome API, and we can have autocomplete on tabs and query and everything like that. And this is another reason why TypeScript's awesome and why the support for TypeScript is growing every time. So let's go into here and we'll do another thing. We'll do chrome.scripting and execute script. And just like we were doing before, we're passing the target of the tab ID, and we'll say there's going to be a function in here. It's going to just show an alert pop up saying hello from my extension. Cool. Now let's just delete that unused import at the top here. And then we can build this. So we'll go into the console and we'll do npm run build again. And then when we load it up in Google Chrome, so I'll reload the extension here. Go onto any web page and open up our Chrome extension. Now when I click this click me button, it will fire that script and it will fire and say hello from my extension like it was doing in the previous iteration. So that's happening from that onClick handler that we put inside the app.tsx component. Great, now let's make it do something a little bit more exciting than just saying hello. Let's make it actually change the background color of the page. So in order to do that, we're going to need to do document.body.style and then background color. And we'll just set that to red for now. So if I just build that, what that's going to do is this document node here, this is going to be the document node of the tab that they're currently on. So if we go to example.com, that'll be the document node of example.com. Once that's built, which I think it has, once that's built, we can go into the extensions tab and reload it. And now, when I click this button, it should change the background color of the page to red. Let's try it out. There we go. So that's changed the background color to red. So we're getting there. This is good. We're interacting with the DOM of the example tab from our Chrome extension. Cool. So now what we want to do is make it so they can actually pick the background color using a little color pop-up. So let's create a color constant in here. And we're just going to do useState, and we're going to store the color into a state file. We'll just import useState at the top. And I'm going to create an HTML input here. Type is color. There, so I've created an input where the type is color. That's the built-in HTML5 color picker. And then when you change that, it's going to call the setColor function, which is in our useState at the top here. And it's going to set the color to the current color that you'd selected. And the value is going to be the current value from our state. Okay, and the only thing we need to do now is where we're setting background color to red, we need to set background color to the color that's in our state. Now, this isn't as simple as it might seem at first. There's actually going to be a little bit of complexity where we have to switch context here. So let me explain what's going to go on here. If we replace this with color, that's not going to work. And the reason that's not going to work is because this function is executing inside the context of the tab that they're currently on, and the rest of this code is executing in the context of the pop-up. So where we're doing this color variable here, that variable is being stored inside the code inside the pop-up, and this document is happening inside the page. And so you can't access variables from the component inside the DOM. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pass in this color variable when we're doing execute script. So the way we can do that is we can use this args function here. So we're going to pass in this color variable into the args of our script. Now, TypeScript doesn't know about this args because it needs to be strongly typed. So the way we can do that in TypeScript is we'll just tell it about it by putting some generic type parameters in here. So we'll say that we're going to be using a string array. So our arguments function is going to be a string array, and then it can be whatever. So our string is just going to be the color, and then that should be enough to go into here and set the color. So the function color will come in here, and that will be that color that gets passed in here. So there we have it. Let's build this and try it out. So I'll do an npm run build and just wait for that to build. And this should create the color picker on the screen. It should execute the script. It should pass that color variable through to the context of the page. And then we'll see what happens. Let's go refresh this so it goes back to being normal color. Reload our Chrome extension. Go to example.com, open up our Chrome extension, and you'll see that we have this color picker now. So if I select a color on this color picker, let's select a nice blue, sort of bluey purple. When I do this click me, it's going to take that color, which is the bluey purple, and it's going to pass it through that execute script as an argument, and it's going to set it in the background color on the page. There we go, it's blue. Let's just make this another color, let's make this green. And again, each time we do this, we're setting the color variable in our state inside our React component, and then we're passing it through to the background color of the page. So there we go, we've got a Chrome extension that lets you change the background color of any page that you're on. So let's just try it on a different page then. If I go to train2code.com, and so should you, the background color of my page now is this kind of light gray color. So if I open up my Chrome extension, my Vite extension, and let's say I want the background color of this page to be a sort of fuchsia color. When I do click me, you can see it's changing the background color of train2code.com. So you can do it on any web page you want basically. It will inject the script and it will pass the background color through, and it will run it on the active tab, which in this case is train2code.com, and in this case it was example.com. This has been a quick tutorial on building Chrome extensions, but if you want to go deeper into Vite, then check out my Vite course, which is linked in the description below. And why not watch this next video about how to run TypeScript in VS Code, including how to get the debugger working, which is something that I know you'll find extremely useful. So until next time, my name is James Charlesworth, and this is Train to Code on YouTube.